Hi everyone. Today we're talking about the top 5 life cycle events. Lifetime events are something that most people experience throughout their lives. Not everyone goes through them at the same time, but it's the most common steps that most people will take throughout their lifetime. It doesn't mean you'll take them in the same order that everyone takes them in, but it's just to give you an idea of the expenses that might arise through your lifetime, so that you can put money away for this, or you can plan for these steps if and when they happen to you, or to your children, or to your grandchildren, if you want to be able to help them out. Life cycle number 1, holidays. We tend to start going on holidays either with friends or family in our late teens or early 20s, when we start to gain a sense of independence. This sort of thing requires saving of some sort and can cost about £200 plus, depending on where you go and who you go with. This is the first time in your life really that you'll need to save for an event, and it's a great skill to learn early on. So it really gives you a habit for life that you will use in every stage of your life. So learning it at this point is great for the future. It may not be a holiday with friends or family, it may be something like a hen do or a stag do, and I'm sure many of you have gone on those too. They can be a bit more on the expensive side, but again, that's when the skill set like saving can really come into play. Life cycle event number 2. Weddings or civil ceremonies. In the UK, the average wedding or civil ceremony costs around £24,000. That's a vast sum of money when you come to think about it, but how do you cover that sort of cost? Some people save themselves for it, or they're very lucky to have contributions or people who help them out, parents or grandparents, that sort of thing, which can be really helpful and means that you can cover that expense and not have a debt hanging around your neck come the end of it. Some people, however, do use loans or credit cards to help them to pay for that cost. And again, if you can afford that and that's how you need to cover the cost, then if that suits your situation, that's fine. But you must be able to make the repayments, otherwise that can start to impact your credit score. Credit score is also important to think about now, because weddings and civil ceremonies are most commonly followed by your most biggest purchase to date, and that is obviously a property. Which leads us on to life cycle number 3. Purchasing a property is one of the biggest things that most people will purchase in their lifetime, and in the UK the average property price is around £216,000. Now, most people will need to secure a mortgage to cover that sort of cost, and there are several things you need to be able to secure the best mortgage rate over the shortest term, because really you want to clear that debt as quickly as possible and you want to secure it at the lowest interest rates. You might want to shop around yourself for this, but actually if you can speak to an independent mortgage broker, they will likely be able to find a better deal, and one that is ideal for your circumstances, because we're all different. We're all earning different amounts of money, we're all different ages, and we all purchase properties at different prices. So it's best to speak to someone who can get you the best deal for your situation. Another thing to think about when you purchase a property is mortgage cover. If something happened to you, what would happen to your remaining partner or whoever you purchase a property with? Would they be able to cover the mortgage payments themselves? And most likely that's not the case. So mortgage cover would mean that the mortgage would be paid off on the death of the person that is covered, meaning that if there's anyone left behind, they don't have to bear the burden of covering the mortgage payments themselves. To secure a good mortgage, the 2 key things you need are a deposit of some sort, and the bigger the better, and a good credit score, because if you have a good credit score, the banks are going to be more keen to lend you the money. There are things you can do if your credit score is not that great. You need to do things like pay off bills on time, meet all your direct debits. If you start to skip payments on anything, on credit cards or loans or anything like that, then that will start to flag up with the credit score company, and then you don't look as attractive to mortgage lenders. So make sure your credit score is top notch before you go looking for a mortgage. And you want to take steps to make that happen earlier on, because they can look back sort of 3 or 6 months or even longer. So you want to make sure that you start to deal with that first, a few months before you actually want to secure a mortgage. Life cycle event number 4, having children. Now, some of you may not want or don't have, or maybe that's not in the cards for you, but for a lot of people, children play a big part in their lives. They either have them already and they need to think about covering the daily costs or thinking about their future, or they plan to have them someday, and that's something you need to think about if that is going to be on the cards for you. The average cost of aiding a child from birth to age 21 is £230,000 plus. Now, obviously, you're not going to see that as a lump sum, because 21 years is a long time to spread that cost over. But it's things that you need to maybe think about putting money aside for, or just at least being aware of that implication, so that if that time does come when you have a child or children to look after, you'll just be able to tweak or change your expenses slightly or your income slightly so that you can cover that extra expense. Protection for loved ones is very important. If you can put extra policies in place, such as life cover, critical illness cover, family income benefit, different types of protection policies that all have different benefits but can all help if you or your partner end up suffering an incident or passing away. They can all help provide an additional lump sum or income source should that be the case, and generally the premiums for this are very low depending on your benefit that you're after and how long the cover lasts for. There's usually a solution for every budget. This is probably something you would need to speak to an advisor about. As a whole of market advisor, an independent financial advisor, I can look at the whole of the market and I would discuss every single option with you so that you know what would best suit your circumstances to make sure that your family are best covered for the lowest price but the highest amount of cover. Last but not least, life cycle event number 5, retirement. A lot of people put off retirement or pensions or anything that relates to retirement because they think, why should I do that? I need to live for the here and now. I might never reach retirement. I might die before then. I might have an inheritance before then. But really, you should be thinking about this as soon as you start working. It's very good now with the automatic enrolment that almost as soon as you start working, depending on the rules of your employer, that you would get enrolled into a workplace pension if you met the eligible criteria, which is a great way to start saving for your retirement early on. But if you sort of have been working for maybe 10 or 20 years before you've fallen into the automatic enrolment, then you probably have missed 10 or 20 years of pension savings that you're probably going to have to make at some point, and you might have to address that sooner rather than later. The sooner you start saving and the more you can put away, the longer your money has to work for you, and it can be invested in funds that are suitable for your risk appetite. So you don't have to be put in the most volatile funds to be able to get a good return. If you're a low risk person, you can be put in low risk investments. But generally, if you're investing for the long term, you can probably afford to take a slightly more risk because you're likely going to be able to ride out the volatility that may happen in the short term. Another big factor to consider is the state pension. Now, you can get a state pension forecast on the government website, so do check that out. But the state pension is going to change probably between now and the time you retire. If you're in your 20s, 30s or 40s, there are already plans to push the state pension age back, and that will likely continue to happen over the next few decades. So though the state pension is a great benefit to have, it might look different when you actually come to claim it. So don't assume that the state pension will be operating in the same way as you come to claim it as it is at the moment. Pensions have changed a lot since 2015. Flexible retirement was brought in and flexible products have been brought in. So there are a lot more options now when you come to accessing your pension. Not simply an annuity, that is still an option, but it's an option that many people explore alongside other ways to access their money. Now, you can obviously do your own research into pensions and how they operate these days, but if you've got an accumulated pension pot or you've got several of these pots, you might have a final salary pension somewhere in the background as well. It can be helpful to go and see an independent financial advisor to just lay out everything that you've got, and they can point you in the right direction or at least give you some indicators as to what the options are and how they can help you. You don't necessarily have to proceed with a financial advisor if you don't want to. You can simply go along for an initial meeting, which I certainly offer free of charge. And if you don't need any more information or help than that, then that's absolutely fine. You can go away and do your own thing with whoever you want to. But if you do want to proceed, they'll be able to guide you along the route, give you a bespoke recommendation and put that in place for you, all for the fee that they disclose to you at the time of carrying out the transaction. If, however, you just want some free guidance that's not bespoke to you, the government have a free service called PensionWise, and it's a great port of call initially if you just want some ideas about how pensions work. They won't be able to give you any personalised information relating to your particular pensions, but if you just want some initial guidance, then that's a good place to start before you proceed to see an IFA later on if you do want some more help. Another thing to think about at this point is inheritance tax. You might have an estate that's large enough that your beneficiaries will be hit with an inheritance tax bill when you pass away. This might not bother you, but if it does, there are things you can put in place to make sure that inheritance tax is mitigated, at least partially, if not in full. There are different policies you can take out. There are very clever investment strategies that you can do, but these are something that you should speak to an IFA about because they are complex and they do have their pros and cons, but definitely speak to them if you want to explore that option. I hope that's been a helpful guide to the life cycle events that not everyone will go through, but it's been a broad summary, I hope, of the events that most people encounter at some point in their lives. Please do get in touch if there's anything I can help with, even if it's just an initial chat about something, or if you've just got a question, just drop me a line and let me know how I can help you.